The coffee cup slipped from my trembling hands before I even realized it. The hot liquid splashed across the polished table, staining the paper spread neatly before him. Gasps echoed around the cafe, followed by the cruelest sound of all, laughter. I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs. My entire body went cold. And then his eyes lifted. Sharp, cold, unforgiving. Theo. The man every student on campus whispered about with both fear and admiration. He was here, holding a business meeting, and I, the poor part-time worker, had just spilled coffee all over his suit worth more than my entire year's tuition. The room went silent. Only the sound of the coffee dripping from the edge of the table filled the air. Pathetic. That single word fell from his lips like a blade, slicing me open for everyone to see. Whispers rippled through the crowd. She ruined his papers. Did you see her hands shaking? No wonder. She's just a poor scholarship girl. My cheeks burned. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the ground. But I forced myself to bow, stammering, I'm so sorry, sir. I'll clean this immediately. I grabbed a cloth, scrubbing furiously, but the more I tried, the worse it seemed. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. His voice cut through me again. Low, cold, dripping with contempt. Do you think an apology is enough? Or is this your little scheme? A way to catch my attention? Gasps. Giggles. Someone snickered from the back. She probably planned it. These poor girls always dream of catching a rich man. The laughter grew louder, stabbing me from every direction. My vision blurred, but I bit my lip so hard it almost bled. I refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. But his eyes, they lingered on me, dark and accusing, as though I was something disgusting crawling at his feet. Manager, he said without even looking at me. Fire her. Immediately. My breath caught. No, he couldn't. This cafe job was the only thing keeping me alive. My rent, my tuition, my meals, they all depended on this. I dropped to my knees before I could stop myself, the cloth still clutched in my hand. Please, please don't. I need this job. It won't happen again. I swear. More laughter. A girl's mocking voice. Look at her begging. How pitiful. His gaze dropped to me, cold and merciless. You should have thought of that before daring to ruin my meeting, he said. I don't give second chances. I shook my head desperately, my voice trembling. Please, it wasn't on purpose. I'll work extra shifts, My throat closed, choking on the weight of humiliation. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, studying me like I was an insect. And then, with a mocking tilt of his lips, he added, Fine. You want to keep your job? Then you'll work a full month without pay. Consider it punishment for your clumsiness. The room erupted again. Gasps, laughter, and cruel whispers. She deserves it. Maybe now she'll learn her place. A whole month for free? Serves her right. I lowered my head, staring at the ground. My pride screamed, but I forced the words out. Yes, I'll do it. 'Cause I had no choice. The weight of their stares crushed me, but I held still, letting the humiliation wash over me like fire searing my skin. My heart throbbed painfully, yet beneath it all, a single thought whispered inside me. Endure. Just endure. But as I turned away, clutching the dirty cloth, I felt his eyes still on me, watching, cold, unyielding, and I couldn't shake the strange chill that maybe this was only the beginning. What I didn't know that day was this. The cruel punishment he gave me would not break me. It would bind our fates together in ways neither of us could escape. If you were standing there with me, watching the CEO humiliate a poor student in front of everyone, would you have spoken up? Or just joined the whispers? Tell me in the comments. And if you want to hear how this cruel twist of fate turns into something unforgettable, don't forget to subscribe and hit like. Your support means everything as we dive deeper into this story. The cafe emptied slowly after his meeting, but the echo of laughter clung to me like poison. I stood frozen behind the counter, my apron stiff with coffee stains, my pride shattered. When the last group of suited men filed out, I hoped that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. He didn't leave. Theo. Instead, he remained seated at the corner table, his gaze sharp as a blade, cutting across the room until it pinned me in place. Come here. The command was soft, yet it slammed into me harder than a shout. My knees almost buckled as I walked toward him, each step heavier than the last. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his tailored suit spotless again, while I looked like nothing but a trembling servant. You really thought you could get away with just an apology? His voice was low, dangerous. I bit my lip, keeping my head bowed. I already accepted the punishment, sir. A month without pay. I'll endure it. The corner of his mouth twitched, not in kindness but in cruel amusement. You think it's that easy? His eyes narrowed. Do you have any idea how much those documents were worth? How much time you cost me today? I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I wanted to explain that it was an accident, that my hands had slipped, that I was already working 3 shifts a day to survive. But the words tangled in my chest, because I knew he wouldn't care. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he could break apart. You're in university, aren't you? A scholarship student working here to scrape by. My stomach clenched. How did he know? I've seen your type before, he continued. Desperate. Hungry. Always looking for an opportunity to climb. I shook my head quickly, panic rising. No, please, it wasn't like that. I don't want anything from you. He leaned forward, his voice a sharp whisper. Lies. The word burned. Tears pricked my eyes, but I forced them back. I couldn't let him see me break. Not again. Behind us, I heard the voices of 2 remaining waitresses, whispering by the counter. Why is he still here? Maybe she really tried to get his attention. Honestly, who wouldn't? He's the CEO. But she's stupid if she thought he'd ever look at her. Their words stabbed deeper than knives. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. But he heard them too. And he smirked. See, he murmured. Even your colleagues know what you are. A poor student chasing after something you can never have. I wanted to scream. To shout that they were wrong. That he was wrong. That I wasn't some desperate girl scheming for his attention. But my voice failed me. Instead I whispered, You don't know me. The smirk vanished. His eyes hardened like ice sealing over water. You're right. I don't. And I don't need to. He stood, towering over me. I felt so small, so fragile beneath his presence. Stay out of my sight, he said coldly. If I see you near me again, whether by accident or design, you'll regret it. Then he walked past me. The scent of his expensive cologne lingering in the air, suffocating. The door slammed shut behind him. And I was left standing there, trembling, shattered, broken open for the world to mock. That night, I worked in silence, scrubbing tables until my fingers ached, replaying his words again and again. Desperate. Hungry. Climbing. Was that really how people saw me? I lay awake long after midnight, staring at the cracked ceiling of my tiny rented room. The shadows seemed to whisper his cruel voice back at me, over and over, until I buried my face in my pillow to drown it out. But even then I couldn't escape the truth. He hated me. And for some cruel reason, that hatred burned brighter in my chest than I wanted to admit. What I didn't know was this. The more he pushed me away, the more fate would drag me back into his path, until neither of us could escape. I had always believed that my life was already difficult enough, balancing part-time jobs, late-night study sessions, and taking care of myself with barely any money. But after offending him, the world's most powerful CEO, I realized what true misfortune really felt like. The very next day after our first clash in the library, my name was suddenly called to the dean's office. My heart hammered the entire walk there, my mind racing with anxious possibilities. Had I broken some rule? Was my scholarship revoked? The dean sat across from me, his eyes heavy with unease. He avoided my gaze as he handed me a paper. This, he said quietly, is a formal complaint against you. It comes directly from Mr. Lu Chen, the CEO of Lu Corporation, one of our largest sponsors. My hands trembled as I held the paper. A complaint? From him? What had I done except accidentally bump into him and speak too bluntly? The dean sighed. You're a bright student, Lin Xinya, but you must understand our university relies heavily on Mr. Lu's support. Please, whatever you did, find a way to apologize. Don't make this worse. The humiliation stung more than the fear. I had done nothing wrong. Yet here I was being forced to bow down to a man who thought he could control everyone's fate. I walked out of the office with my chest burning. But things escalated faster than I could imagine. That week, my job at the cafe suddenly cut my shifts. The manager refused to explain why, only muttering something about orders from above. My small dorm allowance was delayed without reason. Even my scholarship committee called me in to reconsider my eligibility. Everywhere I turned, doors were closing. I didn't need to be told, it was him. Lu Chen was pulling strings in the background, punishing me for daring to speak to him, as if he were just an ordinary man. And yet, the strangest part was what happened when I saw him again. I spotted him in the courtyard of the university during an event, surrounded by professors and students eager to impress him. He stood tall in his tailored black suit, his aura commanding, his expression unreadable. But then his eyes, those cold, piercing eyes, found me in the crowd. For the briefest second I swore I saw something flicker there. Not anger. Not disdain. Something else. Something I couldn't name. But just as quickly his mask returned. He turned away as if I were invisible. That night, lying on my bed, I whispered into the darkness. Why me? Why are you tormenting me? Yet deep inside my heart ached with confusion. Because though he was cruel, though he had turned my life upside down, I couldn't erase the image of his eyes locking onto mine. And I hated myself for wondering, was there something more behind his punishment? Understand what would happen if Lu Chen's punishment wasn't just cruelty, but also a twisted way of keeping me tied to him? The pressure of his punishment was suffocating me. Every day felt heavier. My professors suddenly treated me with cautious pity. My classmates whispered behind my back, and my part-time jobs were vanishing one by one. Yet, despite everything, I refused to kneel. I told myself, I'll survive this storm no matter what. One rainy evening, as I rushed from the library carrying a stack of borrowed books, fate threw me directly into his world again. I was running across the courtyard, my shoes splashing through puddles, when suddenly a sleek black car stopped right in front of me. Its window slid down slowly, and there he was, Lu Chen. He leaned against the seat casually, one hand on the wheel, his sharp eyes narrowing at me. You really don't know when to quit, do you? His voice was smooth, deep, laced with mockery. I froze, clutching my books tightly against my chest. I didn't do anything wrong, I said, my voice trembling but firm. You're the one making my life miserable. His lips curved, but not in amusement. It was something darker, sharper. And yet, here you are, still standing. Before I could answer, thunder roared above, and the rain poured harder. My thin jacket was instantly soaked through. I shivered, my teeth almost chattering, but I held my ground. I refused to show weakness before him. Then, unexpectedly, he pushed open the passenger door. Get in. I blinked at him, stunned. What? He tilted his head slightly, impatience flickering in his gaze. Do you want to freeze to death out there? Every part of me screamed that this was a trap, but my body, trembling from the cold, betrayed me. Slowly, I climbed into the car, dripping wet. The warmth of the leather seat enveloped me instantly, and I couldn't stop the sigh of relief that escaped my lips. For a moment, silence filled the car. Only the sound of rain against the windows remained. Then, in that quiet space, he did something that shattered my expectations. He reached out, pulling a handkerchief from his pocket, and without asking, gently dabbed the rain from my forehead. My eyes widened. My heart lurched. This was the same man who had cornered me, who had ruined my part-time jobs, who had treated me like an insect. And yet his touch, it wasn't cruel. It wasn't cold. It was careful. Almost protective. I jerked back, confused and breathless. Why are you doing this? His expression darkened, as if even he didn't understand. His hand lingered for a second too long before he pulled away. Don't mistake this for kindness, he said flatly. I don't like weak people falling apart in front of me. But I wasn't a fool. I saw it. That flicker of hesitation. That moment when his eyes softened, just enough to make me question everything I thought I knew about him. That night, after he dropped me near my dorm without another word, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My heart was a battlefield. half filled with hatred for the chains he had wrapped around me, and half with confusion at the strange warmth I had glimpsed beneath his icy exterior. Was it possible that behind the mask of cruelty, Lu Chen had a heart that could still feel? What if the cruel CEO's punishments were just a cover, hiding a heart that had already begun to fall for me? The following morning, the world at school shifted again. Whispers followed me like shadows, soft, poisonous words slithering between desks. She's in his car. I saw it with my own eyes. Do you think she's really his mistress? My stomach twisted as the words sank in. No matter how I defended myself, the narrative was out of my hands. My classmates had already decided who I was. A poor girl trading dignity for favors. I wanted to scream, to shout that it wasn't true, that the CEO I barely understood wasn't my protector, wasn't my lover, wasn't anything but a storm that wouldn't leave me alone. But shouting would only feed their fire. So I did what I always did. I lowered my head, clenched my fists, and endured. Until one afternoon when things spiraled beyond my control. Understood happened in the cafeteria. I had just picked up a tray of simple rice and vegetables, my cheap daily meal, when a sharp laugh rang out behind me. Well, if it isn't the CEO's little plaything. The word struck me like a blade. My hands stiffened. The tray nearly slipped from my fingers. Slowly I turned, and there she was. Wang Meiling, the so-called campus beauty, rich and arrogant, adored by everyone and untouchable by scorn. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, eyes glinting with cruelty. I heard you got into his car. Must be nice, she said, her voice dripping with mock pity. No wonder you act so righteous in class. Turns out you're just selling yourself to climb higher. Her friends tittered behind her, their giggles like venomous snakes. My throat tightened. Heat burned in my chest. I wanted to deny it, to defend myself, but I knew no one would believe me. Still, I forced my voice to stay calm. You don't know what you're talking about. She smirked. Don't I? Poor little Lin Xinya. Pretending to be pure while enjoying the favor of a powerful man. Maybe I should ask him for a recommendation too. After all, you're not the only one with beauty to offer. The humiliation was unbearable. My vision blurred with unshed tears, but I clenched my jaw and walked past her. Don't give her the satisfaction, I told myself. Don't break here. But before I could escape, a sudden commotion erupted at the entrance. The cafeteria doors swung open, and a tall figure strode in with deliberate steps. Gasps filled the room. Students turned to stare, their mouths dropping open. Lu Chen. His presence was like a storm breaking over calm waters, commanding, cold, undeniable. In his tailored black suit, he looked every inch the untouchable CEO. His aura suffocating the entire hall. My heart plummeted into my stomach. Why was he here? In my school? In front of everyone? His sharp gaze swept the room, finally landing on me. My breath caught. His eyes narrowed, as if he could sense the tension still clinging to me like smoke. What happened? His voice was low, dangerous. Nobody dared answer. Wang Meiling, usually fearless, straightened her back and tried to compose herself. Mr. Lu, we were just talking. No harm done. But Lu Chen's eyes darkened. Slowly, deliberately, he closed the distance between us. Every step echoed like thunder in my chest. When he stopped, he was inches away. His scent, expensive, sharp, intoxicating, wrapped around me. I couldn't breathe. Then, to my shock, his hand reached out and tilted my chin upward. His touch was gentle, but the gesture left me trembling. Did they bully you? He asked, his voice cold but edged with something else, something protective. I shook my head quickly. And no, nothing happened. His gaze hardened. You're lying. Before I could protest, he turned to the crowd, his voice like a blade cutting through the air. Who dares touch what's mine? The words froze me in place. What's his? My mind reeled. Students gasped audibly. Murmurs exploded in every corner. Mine. Did he just claim me in front of the entire school? My heart thrashed wildly. Confusion, anger, fear. all tangled together. I wanted to scream at him to tell him he had no right, that he was only making things worse. But my voice wouldn't come. Wang Meiling's face drained of color. She stammered, Mr. Lu, I didn't mean, get out. Lu Chen snapped, his tone ice-cold. She froze, humiliated, before fleeing with her entourage. Their arrogance shattered in an instant. The cafeteria buzzed with shocked whispers. Students stared at me with wide eyes, some envious, some pitiful, some hateful. But all I could focus on was the man beside me. The man who had just thrown gasoline on the fire already consuming me. When we finally stepped outside, the chill air biting at my skin, I couldn't hold back anymore. Why did you do that? I demanded, my voice trembling. Do you know what you've done to me? They'll all think. They already think it. He cut me off smoothly, his expression unreadable. At least now they won't dare touch you. I stared at him, speechless. His words, cruel as they sounded, carried a truth I couldn't deny. The bullying, the humiliation, it would stop, at least on the surface. But the cost was my reputation, my dignity. Don't you understand? My voice cracked. You've chained me even tighter. You've made me your possession in front of everyone. I'm not your toy, Lu Chen. For the first time, something flickered across his face. A flash of regret? Pain. It vanished too quickly to name. You're right, he said quietly, almost too softly for me to hear. You're not a toy. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving me trembling in the cold with my heart caught between fury and something dangerously close to longing. That night, lying in bed, I pressed a hand against my chest. Why did his words echo in me? Why did his gaze feel like it could burn through every wall I built? I hated him. I should hate him. But deep inside, beneath the layers of fear and resentment, I couldn't ignore the truth. Lu Chen's cruelty hid something else. A force that scared me even more than his punishments. A force that felt dangerously close to love. Was I falling into his trap? Or was he the one slowly falling into mine? The following days after the cafeteria incident were unbearable. Everywhere I walked, eyes followed me. Some filled with envy, others dripping with malice. Girls whispered venomously, as though my existence alone was offensive. Boys looked at me differently, no longer seeing me as just another student, but as her, the girl owned by the CEO. I wanted to disappear. To bury myself in books and erase the heavy gazes pressing on my back. But reality never allowed me peace. One morning, while carrying stacks of borrowed texts to the library, I overheard a group of girls by the stairwell. She's so shameless. Doesn't even have the decency to deny it. Walking around like she's someone important now. Can you imagine? From washing dishes in the canteen to catching a CEO? What a dirty Cinderella story. I clenched the book so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My lips trembled with the effort to stay silent. If I spoke, it would only feed their cruelty. But inside, my heart screamed. I never asked for this. I never wanted him to interfere. Why can't they see that? That afternoon, everything shifted again. I was leaving campus when a black car pulled up at the gates. My stomach dropped before the window even rolled down. It was him. Lu Chen. The driver stepped out immediately and opened the back door. Students walking past slowed, craning their necks to watch. My cheeks flushed crimson as I froze in place. Get in, Lu Chen's voice commanded from inside. Calm, unyielding, brooking no refusal. My instinct screamed to run, to escape before every gossiping mouth saw me. But the driver's expectant gaze, the weight of countless stares, and his invisible leash pulled me toward the car against my will. Sliding inside, I pressed myself against the seat, clutching my bag like a shield. The door shut, sealing me in his world. He studied me in silence for a long moment, his eyes sharp but unreadable. Finally he spoke. You haven't eaten properly. You've lost weight. My head snapped up. How would you know that? His gaze flickered briefly to my trembling hands before returning to my face. I noticed things. The simplicity of his words unnerved me more than anger ever could. I looked away, staring out the window as the city blurred past. Why are you doing this? You've already ruined my peace. Do you enjoy making me suffer? A muscle tightened in his jaw. If I wanted you to suffer, Lin Xinya, you wouldn't be sitting here. The tone, flat, yet laced with a hidden meaning, made my chest tighten painfully. I didn't want to think about what he meant. I didn't want to imagine the deeper layers of this man who unsettled me at every turn. We stopped at a restaurant far beyond anything I could ever afford. Crystal chandeliers glimmered above, and soft piano music floated through the air. Waiters bowed as Lu Chen walked in, his presence commanding the entire room. I felt like an imposter, a sparrow forced into a golden cage. My thrift store blouse and worn shoes screamed louder than any insult. But he didn't seem to notice. Or perhaps he didn't care. He pulled out a chair for me, personally, not through some waiter, and gestured. Sit. I sank into the seat, feeling my heart pound painfully against my ribs. As dishes arrived, each more exquisite than the last, I hesitated. My fingers curled around the chopsticks, frozen. He frowned slightly. What's wrong? I forced the words out, my throat tight. I can't eat this. I don't belong here. His eyes sharpened, pinning me in place. And who decides where you belong? I swallowed hard. Reality does. People like me. We don't belong in your world. Silence stretched between us. For a moment, I thought he would dismiss my words coldly. But instead he leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping lower. Do you really think wealth defines belonging? You think I was born in a palace? I blinked, startled. For the first time I saw a shadow in his expression, something raw, unpolished, vulnerable. Before I could ask, he shifted back, his mask snapping into place. Eat. My hands trembled as I lifted the chopsticks. I took a small bite, the flavors exploding across my tongue, unfamiliar and overwhelming. He watched silently, his gaze steady, almost satisfied. Later, as he drove me back toward campus, I finally whispered, Why me? Out of all the people in your world, why do you keep targeting me? His grip tightened on the steering wheel. For a moment he didn't answer. Then, softly but firmly, he said, Because you don't bend. Everyone else bows when I walk into a room. You don't. That makes you unforgettable. My breath caught. The words sank into me like a thorn, painful, dangerous, yet impossible to ignore. But I couldn't allow myself to believe them. I couldn't let my heart fall into the trap of a man who held all the power while I had none. So I whispered back, Then maybe you should forget me. His jaw clenched, his silence heavier than words. When the car stopped at the gates, I stepped out quickly, desperate to escape before my heart betrayed me. But just as I turned, his voice followed me through the rain-scented air. Lin Xinya. I paused back rigid. Run all you want, he said softly, yet his tone held the force of command. But you can't outrun me. The door shut, and his car disappeared into the night, leaving me trembling under the streetlight, torn between fear and the dangerous warmth curling in my chest. Understood. That night, lying in my narrow dorm bed, I stared at the ceiling as his words replayed over and over. Unforgettable. You can't outrun me. I pressed a hand against my chest, my heart thundering. Why did part of me feel as though he wasn't threatening me at all but pleading? Was Lu Chen truly my captor? Or was he slowly becoming a prisoner of his own heart? The whispers on campus grew louder with each passing day. She's just his plaything. Do you think he'll keep her around for long? Maybe she sold herself for tuition money. Their voices cut like knives, but I forced myself to keep walking, head high. If I showed even a flicker of pain, they would devour me. But deep down I was breaking. The cruel irony was that every time Lu Chen appeared, Every time his black car waited outside the gate, every time he ordered me into his world, those whispers grew sharper. Yet part of me no longer dreaded his presence, and that terrified me most of all. One rainy evening, as I tried to sneak out of the library unnoticed, the inevitable happened. He was waiting. The sleek car gleamed under the street lamp, droplets rolling off its polished surface. My chest tightened. I could have pretended not to see. I could have walked the other way. But the back door opened before I had a chance. His voice carried out through the drizzle, calm, deep, and commanding. Lin Xinya, get in. My legs trembled as I obeyed, sliding into the warmth of leather and silence. His presence filled the small space, suffocating yet magnetic. I clenched my back, staring at my shoes. You can't keep doing this. People already. Let them talk. His voice cut through the air like a blade. They don't matter. My head snapped up, anger sparking in my chest. Don't matter? Their words follow me everywhere. You don't understand. His eyes locked onto mine, sharp and unyielding. I understand more than you think. Something in his tone stopped me cold. His gaze wasn't just cold arrogance tonight. It carried shadows, old wounds etched into silence. Before I could ask, he leaned back, closing his eyes briefly. I didn't bring you here to argue. The car pulled into a different place this time. A private villa perched on a hill, lights glowing warmly against the storm. I stiffened instantly. Why here? His lips curved faintly, though no warmth reached his eyes. Because I wanted to. He led me inside, and I found myself in a living room filled with understated elegance. No gold, no crystal chandeliers, just muted tones, clean lines, a sense of solitude. Felt lonely. Sit, he said softly, pouring 2 glasses of water instead of wine. That small detail unsettled me more than lavish displays ever could. We sat in silence for several minutes, the storm outside echoing my heartbeat. Finally, I couldn't hold back anymore. Why are you doing this to me? My voice cracked, raw with exhaustion. Do you enjoy controlling me? Watching me squirm? His head tilted slightly, his eyes narrowing. Then he leaned forward, his voice low but steady. I've never wanted control over you. I froze. He continued, his tone sharper now. Do you think I drag you here because I can't find another girl? Do you think you're so easily replaceable? My lips parted but no sound came out. Then his next words shattered the air. You haunt me, Lin Xinya. The confession hit harder than any insult. My chest tightened painfully, my pulse racing out of control. I shook my head, whispering, don't say things like that. You don't mean them. His hand slammed against the table suddenly, making me flinch. For the first time, his composure cracked. I mean every word. His voice thundered, echoing through the empty villa. I've tried to forget you. I've buried myself in work, in women, in power. None of it works. You won't leave me. I trembled, unable to breathe. Seeing him like this, angry, desperate, vulnerable, was more frightening than his cold arrogance had ever been. I whispered, barely audible, but I never asked for this. His expression twisted, a war raging in his eyes. Finally, his voice dropped, almost breaking. And yet here you are. In my veins. In my nights. In every thought I can't control. Fears stung my eyes, blurring my vision. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him to leave me alone, to stop tearing my world apart. But deep inside, another voice whispered, why does this sound like pain? Why does he look just as trapped as I feel? I forced myself to stand, my knees weak. I can't do this. I can't be your obsession. I won't. His jaw tightened, fury and anguish flashing across his face. For a terrifying moment, I thought he would drag me back down into that chair. But then, he let out a harsh breath and turned away, shoulders rigid. Go, he said hoarsely, before I lose what little control I have left. My chest heaved as I stumbled toward the door, my heart shattering with each step. But as I reached the threshold, his voice stopped me one last time. Lin Xinya. I froze. His next words, broken and raw, would haunt me long after I left. No matter how far you run, I'll always find you. Because you're already mine. That night, under the storm's cry, I realized the truth. Lu Chen wasn't just a cold CEO who wanted to break me. He was a man already broken, clutching me like the last thread keeping him alive. And that terrified me more than anything. Was I becoming his salvation? Or his ruin? They say a person only truly breaks when everything worth keeping is taken from them. That night I stood on the edge of that breaking point. The mansion glittered like a palace, but inside it smelled of cold cologne and sharper things. Pride, power, secrets. I had learned to move through its halls like a ghost. Invisible. Quiet. Careful. But the way Lu Chen watched me lately made invisibility impossible. His eyes followed me like weather. Predictable, relentless, impossible to ignore. When he stepped into the drawing room that evening, he was all control, polished and contained, every angle of him a statement. Guests murmured, the kind who traded favors like fortunes. I kept my head down, serving tea with trembling hands. Every movement felt watched, judged. Then someone made a joke about me. A thin laugh, cruel and sharp. It rolled over the room like a loose stone, and the ripples hit me. Heads turned. Smiles widened like knives. I forced my shoulders back and moved on. A glass shattered somewhere in the hall. The clink sounded like a starting gun that set something in motion. Lu Chen's mouth curved, half amusement, half hunger. He crossed the room as if drawn by a magnet. You're smiling at the wrong things tonight, he said. His voice low enough only I would hear. My hands shook. I lifted my chin. I wasn't smiling. My words felt thin. He leaned close enough that the heat of him brushed my temple. The scent of leather and expensive dusk wrapped around me. You lie very well, he breathed. Why do you pretend to be innocent, Lin Xinya? Is it amusement? Strategy? Or just habit? The question landed like a stone. The room seemed to tilt. Faces blurring in peripheral flashes. Laughter, polite and brittle. I wanted to answer, wanted to tell him my truth, spill the nights of study, the days of scrubbing tables, the silence of a wallet with nothing but a single coin left for rent. But the mansion had taught me the cost of honesty. So instead I said what I had learned to say, nothing. That silence broke something in him. I saw it, an infuriated flash behind his eyes. He straightened up like a man preparing to strike. Enough, he announced, voice rising so all ears turned. Everyone enjoy the night. They obeyed like sheep. He strode toward me then, took my wrist without asking, and pulled me out of the room. Fingers tight, not soft. He pushed open a door and led me into a secluded corridor lit by a single lamp. You humiliate me in public, he snapped once the door clicked shut. You embarrass me with your presence. You make me look like a fool. Rage radiated from him, coiled, ready. You made me look like a fool first. I shot back before I could stop myself. The words surprised me. They were sharper than I expected. His jaw jumped. I made you nothing. You made me human, I said. The corridor swallowed my voice, but the truth echoed loud. He threw me against the wall then, not violently at first, just enough to press heat into my back to pin me. The proximity stole my breath. He smelled of iron and smoke and a loneliness I had only seen in rare moments. You don't know what you are saying, he hissed. You don't know what you've done to me. Then tell me, I rasped, wincing as his hand tightened at my elbow. Tell me what I am to you besides your toy, Lu Chen. Tell me why you keep me chained to you in front of everyone. For a heartbeat, his eyes went liquid, dangerous and unguarded. A man who had never lost his footing suddenly looked like he might. I can't stand the thought of you with anyone else, he admitted, as if the confession cost him more than any fight. Heat flamed up my arms. You can't stand the thought of me with anyone else, I repeated. So you make sure no one will ever have the chance. That's not protection. It's ownership. Ownership. The word landed with finality. He squeezed my wrist until I wanted to howl. Do you think you can leave? Walk away. You don't understand what the world will do to you. If I let you go, you'll be ruined. You'll be crushed by every hand you ever met. I keep you here because—" He stopped, breath caught, as if finding a bridge of words too narrow to cross. "Because you're afraid of losing me?" I supplied. He stared at me, the fight rushing back to his face. "Because I can't lose you." The rawness of that cut me deeper than anything else. I pressed my forehead to the cool wall, trying to steady the chaos inside. "I do not want to be something you won't admit," I whispered. "Don't build me a prison and call it love. Don't make my name a possession." For the first time since I'd known him, he stepped back. Not with the arrogance that sharpened every movement, but with something like humility, broken, unfamiliar. He looked at his own hand, the one that still curled where it had held me. "If you want out, go," he said quietly, voice hoarse. "Walk. Run. But don't expect me to stop you." It was an invitation and a threat wrapped in one. My chest hurt with the absurd hope that maybe he would mean it. I turned toward the corridor, toward the bright hall where the party continued, toward people who had already judged me. My steps were small, careful, weighted. But as I reached the door, he spoke again. "I can't watch you be crushed," he said, the words barely audible. "If you leave, I will find a way to tear the world open for you. If you stay, I will do the impossible to keep you safe. Both are my ruin." The confession spilled out like a dam breaking. My hands trembled. The line between love and possessiveness blurred until it was a jagged edge. For a long while we stood in silence, two broken people on opposite sides of a line neither dared cross. The laughter inside the ballroom swelled like distant waves. I felt something inside me change. The fever of humiliation, the cold of ownership, the heat of an impossible confession. All braided into a new resolve. "You can't make me yours with fear," I said finally, voice steady. "If you want me, earn me. Not with threats. Not with chains. With choice." He flinched as though struck. For a moment I thought the fight had ended. Then his expression darkened, and his voice dropped to a whisper full of warning and plea. "You will ruin me," he vowed. "And I will ruin everything to keep you." I walked out into the hall with my chin high, letting the crowd's eyes cut where they would. Some stared, some averted their gaze. A few looked at him, Lu Chen, then at me, and for the first time the power between us shifted in a way I hadn't intended. I had thrown down a gauntlet. He had answered with a confession and a threat. And in that answer everything changed. He promised ruin to keep me. Promised choice. Which of us would break first? Storms clear the sky. But sometimes storms only sweep the ground clean of everything you once trusted. When the rumor mill turned into a machine, it didn't grind gently. Chewed. Spat. It left me raw. Pictures of Lu Chen and me, two frames in the wrong place at the wrong time, circulated through campus and then into the city. Vendors at the market whispered. Professors lowered their voices when I passed. Even my landlord's polite nod frayed into something colder. I wasn't the only one who suffered from other people's stories. Lu Chen's world was built on images and confidence too. A CEO's life is fragile in public opinion. A rumor is like salt on paper. Slow burn until everything falls apart. That morning I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing like a trapped bee. Messages, missed calls, a student journalist I barely knew wanting a quote. A woman from the alumni office asking for a meeting. At the bottom of the flood, a terse message from an unknown number. Meet me tonight. Proof. Don't bring anyone. A friend. Proof. My stomach dropped hard. I had thought the worst of him, his cruelty, his possessiveness, but not this level of exposure. Not the possibility that my name, my dignity, could be bartered for a headline. I went anyway. The alley by the old bookstore smelled of rain and dust. A figure stepped forward, Professor Chen, the one who ran the literature circle I attended. He looked older than I'd remembered, eyes tired but kind. You shouldn't be alone, he began without preamble. You have 3 choices, Lin Xinya. Bow, fight, or disappear. I laughed without humor. Which one do I have the money for? He handed me an envelope. Inside, screenshots of messages, records of paid hush money, a list, people who would benefit from creating scandal. Evidence that a board member was ready to use my reputation as leverage to force Lu Chen to resign should their stock wobble. You need to understand the leverage they hold, he said. And you need to decide what leverage you will use in return. I stared down at the printouts. The paper did not lie. Power has accountants. Power has lawyers. Power keeps receipts. I had no receipts. I had no shield. I had once believed endurance was enough. That night the villa felt smaller. The chandeliers didn't glitter. They glared. Lu Chen greeted me without surprise, like a man who already knew the weather forecast and had decided to stand in the rain anyway. You look tired, he said. Not concern. A statement. I've learned something today, I said. I kept my voice steady because my hands would not be steady. People with power keep files. They keep receipts. They plan blackmail like charity events. Quietly and with good wine. He folded his hands. And I said slowly, I have a choice. I can crawl back into silence and let them write my story. Or I can stop being the only one who bleeds and make them bleed with me. I laid Professor Chen's envelope on the table between us. For the first time since I'd met him, fear softened his features in a way that wasn't anger. It was calculation. A board can be bribed. A rumor can be bought. The ripple effect could sink planes. You would use me as a weapon? He asked, incredulous and wounded. I would use what they will use anyway, I said. I will not be your secret or your scandal. I will not be collateral. He stared at the paper like it was a map he'd been given without asking. You understand. If this goes public, my company will be in flames. Board meetings. Investors breathing down my neck. My father calling late. They will not let me keep my position without sacrifice. And if you sacrifice me? I asked, venom thin on my tongue. If you sign the papers they demand, divorce statement, distance, what then? You keep your empire and lose whatever humanity you have left. You lose me entirely, and perhaps in the end, the thing you love most isn't worth the world that buys it. He slammed his fist down on the table. Glass trembled. You think I don't know that? He erupted. You think I haven't imagined the choice? I would rather watch the stock tumble than hear you humiliated. But I also know how many lives depend on that stock. How many jobs? What ruin it would bring to people. He stopped, the confession collapsing inward. I'm telling you something I never tell anyone. I can't afford chaos. His voice broke where he tried to sound invincible. I felt something like pity and something like cold determination rising inside me. This was the first clear window into what ruled him. Responsibility twisted into tyranny. Not only of others but of himself. His empire wasn't just his shield. It was his chain. If you can't fight them, I said, then we'll fight them together. But not with obedience. With truth. With something they won't buy. He laughed. A short, humorless sound. Truth. Truth that shows how thin their morality is, I said. Exposure. Names. Documents. Not dirt for dirt's sake but facts. You want to keep your company? Then protect it with honesty. Face the board. Tell them the truth about what you know. Show them you will not be controlled by blackmail. Or divorce me on paper and face the public fallout like a man bearing his mistakes. He looked at me then as though seeing me full for the first time. No, not seeing. Calculating. Deciding. This will ruin everything, he said finally. It will change everything, I corrected. But maybe that change is better. We stood across from each other. Two people with bloodied hands, measuring what we loved against what we were willing to lose. Outside, the city hummed with indifferent light. Inside, the villa felt like a courtroom. You're reckless, he said. You're fearless, I countered. And terrified. We both are. He breathed out a sound like a confession. Tomorrow, there will be an emergency board meeting. They'll expect me to distance myself from scandal. They'll ask me to sign papers. If I sign, you're gone. If I refuse, they'll move to remove me. You asked for choice. And if they remove you? I asked quietly. He closed his eyes. Then we both fall. And if we fall? I asked. He opened his eyes, and what I saw there was no longer only control. It was ruin, love, and a strange, desperate hope. Then we fall together. For a moment, the decision hung like a coin mid-flip. Tomorrow would decide whether I was erased with a signature, or whether the man who wanted to own me would finally choose to stand against the rest of his world. I pressed my palms flat against the table, feeling the grain of wood tremble, my pulse strange and steady. "Then fight," I said. He stood, walked to me and simply, without ceremony, took my hand. It was not ownership. It was not violence. It was a vow. "Fight with me," he said. "And if we lose everything, at least we'll keep the truth." The press would be merciless. The board would be colder. The city would whisper. But for the first time I felt the fire inside me match the fire in him. We had thrown a match into the dry kindling of two worlds. Tomorrow everything would burn or everything would be reborn. Either way, there was no stepping back now. Tomorrow's board meeting would decide what we were worth, each other, or everything else. The morning arrived too quickly. I barely slept, turning entangled sheets, imagining every outcome. My heart beat like a war drum as I followed Lu Chen into the towering skyscraper that gleamed against the gray sky. The lobby was buzzing. Assistants hurrying, executives whispering, photographers lurking outside the glass doors like vultures. Even here the air was thick with anticipation, the scent of battle. Lu Chen walked as if none of it touched him. His back straight, jaw sharp, his black suit perfectly tailored. Yet I noticed the tremor in his hand as he tightened his cufflink. For the first time I realized how much weight he carried, how heavy the crown sat. The boardroom doors opened with a groan. Inside sat 12 men and women in immaculate suits, their eyes cold and piercing. They had built their careers on numbers, not hearts. They thrived on control. And right now, I was the unwanted variable. I stood quietly behind him, my palms damp, my presence both weapon and weakness. The chairman, a silver-haired man with eyes like steel, leaned forward. "President Lu, the board has reviewed the evidence, the rumors, the photographs, the disruption to public confidence. For the sake of stability, we demand you issue a statement severing ties with this girl." And he slid a document across the polished mahogany table, signed the dissolution agreement. Effective immediately. The paper was like a knife. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, "Don't do it. Don't betray me." But my voice stayed locked in my throat. Lu Chen's gaze lingered on the document. For a moment silence pressed so hard it hurt my ears. Then he laughed. A low, dangerous laugh. "Do you really think I will betray my wife because you demand it?" A murmur rippled across the table. The chairman's face hardened. "This isn't personal, President Lu. It's business. You know the rules. You know the consequences." "Business." Lu Chen's voice thundered, sharp as lightning. He stood, his figure commanding, eyes blazing with defiance. "Business built on lies, on blackmail, on sacrificing people for profit? That is not business, it's rot. And I will not let my life or my company be ruled by it." He swept the envelope of evidence onto the table. "Screenshots. Documents. Names. Here is your proof. Of who orchestrated the rumors. Of who has been manipulating shares, feeding the media, undermining this company for personal gain." Gasps filled the room. The board members shifted uncomfortably, some whispering, others paling. I watched in awe. This wasn't the cruel, heartless CEO who had once cornered me. This was a man burning his chains, daring the flames to consume him. The chairman's voice faltered. You can't expose this." "I already have." Lu Chen cut him off. His voice was final, unyielding. "By the time you leave this room, the media will know the truth. I will not protect traitors. I will not protect corruption. If I lose my position, so be it. But I will not lose myself. And I will not lose her." The room fell into stunned silence. Every word hung heavy, undeniable. I felt my eyes sting. For the first time he had chosen me, publicly, unapologetically. The chairman slammed his fist on the table, but his authority cracked. Several members exchanged wary glances. One woman spoke softly. "If the documents are true, then perhaps President Lu's decision is justified. Stability comes not from silence but from truth." The tide had shifted. I could feel it. The meeting ended in chaos, some storming out, some frantically calling their aides, some simply watching with wide eyes as Lu Chen led me from the boardroom, his hand firm in mine. The elevator doors closed behind us, shutting out the noise. For a moment silence surrounded us. My chest ached with everything I had wanted to say but hadn't. Finally I whispered, "You really chose me." His gaze softened, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "You think I could let them take you from me? Lin Xinya. You're the only truth I have left." Tears blurred my vision. All the cruelty, all the torment, all the walls he had built, this vow shattered them. He had fought not only for his empire but for me. Outside, the press swarmed like a sea of flashing lights, shouting questions, cameras snapping. But Lu Chen didn't slow. He pulled me close, shielding me with his body, his voice steady and strong. "She is my wife," he declared, loud enough for microphones to catch. "And no one, no rumor, no power, no board will change that." The crowd erupted, chaos spilling into the air. But in that moment I didn't hear the noise. I heard only him. Later that night, back in the quiet of the villa, he held me against his chest. His heartbeat was steady, strong, like the anchor I had never known I needed. "We may have lost allies today," he murmured, "but we won something greater. We won our freedom. We won each other." I closed my eyes, my tears soaking into his shirt. For the first time I believed him. For the first time I wasn't afraid. Because love, when chosen, when fought for, was stronger than any empire. And even if the world turned against us, we would not let go. If this love story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable journeys of fate, love, and redemption. Your support keeps these stories alive.